full question is holding the pick. What is the best way to hold it in your finger position? Does it straight out, curled in a fist? So I think they're talking about like this, curled, or what do you think is the best way?
Yeah. So again, this is one of those things that I don't think there is a best way. It's not about what's right or wrong. And I used to tell students this all the time. It's not about what's right or wrong. It's about what's more or less effective. And that also is in the context of what's more or less effective for what you want to do with the guitar. So for instance, do you want to stand up on stage and play blues like Joe Bonamassa? Well, there are going to be certain things that you need to do to allow you to play that way a lot more easy. Or do you want to sit in front of a concert like in a classical music hall or something and play with your fingers and play like a Beethoven song or Beethoven piece or something like that? There are going to be other things that you need to do that are different from the Joe Bonamassa guy that needs to do that's going to allow you to more easily play classical guitar. See what I'm saying? So it really depends. Now, as far as a general guideline of holding the pick, I'm not sure if I'll be able to show this. Let's see. I'll do it the best I can. So what I generally do is you can think of it as like resting the pick on your finger, almost like if I have a guitar like this. The pick is right now. The pick. Let me see if I can turn this. Yeah, the pick is pointing toward the strings. So I'm just going to relax my hand, see how my fingers are out, and I'm just going to balance the pick on my finger. So the pick is still, if you can see that, the pick is still pointing toward the strings. So just balance it on your finger, and then put your thumb down on top of it to where your thumb doesn't go over the edge of the pick like this. I used to play like that all the time. A lot of people still play like that. It is limiting in certain scenarios. I'm not saying it's the wrong way to do it, but it does limit you in certain scenarios. So it's going to feel awkward when you do it this way at first, when you don't allow your thumb to go past the edge of the pick like this. Remember, all you're doing is balancing the pick and then putting your thumb down on top of it so that your thumb does not go over the edge of the pick or reasonably close. But what you're going to find is picking in this way, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable at first in the sense of you're not going to feel like you have as much control. But as you start getting used to it, and this can take 5 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, or even a week. It doesn't really matter. When you start consistently playing that way, you're going to find that you have a lot more control, a lot more accuracy. Now, the other thing to watch is these three fingers here. A lot of people will say you need to anchor your pinky, or you need to anchor your hand, or you need to anchor one finger somewhere. Think about it. Anchoring is the only reason a boat puts an anchor in the water is because it wants to stay put. As soon as you stay put, you're limiting yourself from moving around on the strings. You're limiting yourself from what you can do. So we don't want to be limited. We want to be unlimited, literally. So what I always suggest is whatever I just suggested with the pick, have your pick grip, and with these three fingers, completely relax the fingers and literally just plop it down onto the neck. Or not the neck, the guitar. Just plop it down, just like that. Now, some people will say, like, well, how am I going to play the strings if my hand is on the strings? Well, of course, you want to raise your hand just enough to be able to play the strings and have the strings ring out. But this is generally what I would suggest. And if you notice a lot of professional players, these fingers here, they'll be moving around. They're just free to slide around, right? And a lot of times you'll notice on really good players, especially really good jazz players and like shred players and whatnot, their middle finger, this finger, as they play, notice how my middle finger is rising. My middle finger is a little bit higher. When you find somebody who's playing like that, I would suggest mirroring that playing position or that picking position. I wouldn't try to make your ring finger come up. It's going to do it naturally. The whole object is to not try, right? The pick grip, relaxing the fingers, plopping it down on the fretboard, all of this is to help you not try to play guitar. It's just to make it easier and more effortless. Like I said, it's going to feel a little bit more uncomfortable at first. You're going to feel like you have less control, but you're going to develop more control as you continue to use that pick grip. Are there other grips? Are there other famous players who have other grips? Absolutely, 100% yes. My favorite guitar player of all time, Pat Metheny, I think he plays with two fingers on the pick and curls his hand up like this. So again, a lot of it's personal preference. The reason I suggest starting of how I just said is because it literally unlimits you when a lot of other ways of playing are limiting. You can always go back to whatever you want later, but I suggest trying this first.
There's so many teachings, so much training out there that you can get lost and get confused. And you probably had tons of teachers who've taught you contradictory things. If you want to jump into breakthrough guitar and do the system that we've had tens of thousands of people take and have breakthroughs, I would say be comfortable with changing some of the habits that you've had in the past. in testing out some of these strategies, these habits that we teach. So be comfortable with those things, test them out in the future, and then if you find that it's slowing you down in a certain style or technique that you want, then go back to your old ways. But if anything, it's going to help diversify your playing.
So I want to make just one quick note on that. There's basically two main types of guitar players, and only one of these types of people really becomes great players really quickly. And the other people kind of stay stuck in a rut and stay frustrated and kind of angry and bitter and jealous and envious pretty much their whole lives. The two different types of people are the first person who is going to be successful very quickly and is going to continue to enjoy higher and higher levels of success is the person who is open-minded to just doing what somebody who's further along than him or her, to just doing something that a mentor or a teacher, etc., suggests, and then just experiencing it. There's an old saying, to know and not to do is not yet to know. So for those who just do without questioning it and do what the teacher tells you, whether that's a personal coach or a fitness trainer, it doesn't matter what it is. For those of you who just do what the person says and experience what they say, you're generally going to find that, oh, this works, or oh, this is like getting me so many more results than I've ever gotten before. Just like the thing I showed with the pick. And that also applies to things that you think you've seen before, things that you think you already know. But remember, to know and not to do is not yet to know. You don't know something until you experience it, even if you've seen it before or you've heard it before, and you think you already know it. The other person or the other type of guitar player who's honestly just going to keep spinning their wheels, and I hate to say it, but it's the truth. Like, why sugarcoat it? It's the truth. Are those people who say, maybe they buy a course or something, or they buy a book and they just skim over it, and they see words that they recognize, they see concepts that they recognize, and they're like, oh, I've seen this before. There's nothing new in here. There's nothing, I already know all this stuff, or that way of doing it is stupid, or I'm not going to try this. It's just the attitude. It really boils down to attitude. There's another great saying that I love, I heard recently. Your attitude determines your altitude. If you want to be a great guitar player, you need to change your attitude. If you're one of those people who doesn't like to try new things, or who thinks that you already know maybe a scale that you've seen before, or a certain series of patterns that you've seen before, or chords, or a theory concept, it doesn't matter. In order for you to grow, in order for you to become a better guitar player, a better person, et cetera, we're here talking about guitar, then be open to doing without prejudging it, without thinking about it. Even if you think you know something. Like if we play a basic scale pattern that you've seen before, there's a reason you need to do it, and you need to put all your effort into it, and you need to be open-minded and just follow through, because we're going somewhere with it, right? It's not about just teaching you one scale pattern or just teaching you one chord or something like that. That's not the point. The point is we need to establish steps that we can build on, and I guarantee you, we're here because we're guaranteeing you, we're betting on it. We're here to help you that if you follow these steps, when you follow these steps, you will reach a higher level of playing than you ever imagined possible for you. You will. It's simply the law of cause and effect. If you jump off a bridge, you're going to be sorry. If you throw a ball in the air, the ball is always going to come back down. It works. It always works the same way. Just follow the steps. That's all I have to say.
Beautiful. Awesome. This one is, what about the size of the pick? I noticed that the jazz players has a much smaller size pick. Can you explain why is this? I tried the small jazz pick, but it brought my right hand too close to the strings since I've grabbed most of the pick body to have better control.
Yep, that's a great question. So I have these two picks here, oddly enough. One is a Jazz 3 pick, and one is the normal pick that I use all the time. Purple, I think it's 1.14 millimeter Dunlop. I've been using these purple ones for 10 years at this point, something like that. So I'm going to use these two as an example. And these are just general guidelines, right? The smaller your pick, the more accurately you're going to feel like you're able to pick, the more speedy you're going to feel like you're able to pick. That's not always true. It's just in general. A lot of this comes down to personal preference after you've experienced different types of picks, right? So that's the size. Size is the smaller, the more like resolution you feel like you have. The more, when you have a smaller pick, the more you have to move to touch the strings. So it's almost like you have more, the control is more up to you. When you have a bigger pick, obviously you don't have to move as far. You can kind of do this and hit the strings, right? So it might be a little bit easier to play kind of sloppy. When you're strumming strings versus playing lead guitar, might be a bigger pick might be a little bit easier. But then again, I know a lot of like really, I personally know a lot of really good world-class like neoclassical guitar players who play super fast, only play one note at a time, and they use huge picks. They use the big picks that are like triangles, and they're huge, they're like bass picks. In general, you know, these are general guidelines, but it does come down to personal preference after you've experienced different types of picks. Now, the other thing that I'll mention is size this way. So thickness, very generally, the thinner your pick is, the more it's going to bend when you play, the more flexible it's going to be. So that's generally better for like strumming, having a light touch, or having a lighter sound. As your pick gets thicker, the thicker your pick gets, the fatter sound you're going to get. And also the pick isn't going to bend when you push through the string. It's going to be very hard. So you have to have more control of the pick in that case, but you're going to get you're going to get a deeper, fatter sound. And also you can play faster very quickly with a thicker pick because the pick doesn't bend whenever you push through the strings.
We actually get a lot of questions in. Should we use a thin pick, a thick pick, a heavy pick?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great question.